Hello everyone, my name is Ian and you are watching Big Rock Moto. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you're new here and you like this kind of content, I hope you will consider subscribing. In today's episode 2 on the 2024 Husqvarna FE501S Dual Sport, it's going to be very simple. I'm going to take you on a quick walk around the bike, show you the specs and features. Then we're going to go for a ride on the street and on the trail and just gather our first impressions. So right now this bike is completely 100% stock, right down to the grips, the crappy mirrors that don't work, the side stand that flips up every time you try to move the bike, the tires, which are not suitable for this bike. It's completely stock because I want to show you, including the floppy rear fender, all the stuff that they're forced to do to meet DOT regulations, emissions regulations, noise regulations, all that kind of stuff. Everything's still on here, so we're going to show how it is to ride stock. Through the course of the series, of course, I'm going to be doing a lot of modifications on a lot of different parts of the bike to try to improve some of the factory deficiencies and make it better. Now, if you missed episode 1, I'll link that right here in the card where I'm pointing, somewhere up above and down below in the description and the pinned comment. In episode 1, I talked about why I bought the bike. I talked about some of the new stuff for 2024, talked about my plans for the series, and we had a little pricing discussion. Speaking of pricing, let's just jump into the specs real quick. This bike is around $13,000 US, plus tax and fees and things like that, making it, I think, the most expensive dual sport bike you can buy, at least right now here in the USA that I know of. So yeah, it's not cheap. Let's talk about the specs real quick. So I weighed it on my scale. If you saw episode 1, I came in at 262 pounds with about a half to 2/3 tank of fuel. So it should be around 265 with the full tank of fuel. However, Husqvarna claims it's 256 pounds wet. So there's a little discrepancy there. 116 kilograms is their claimed weight. Not too big of a deal, but something that I just wanted to point out. Let's talk about the engine. It's a 511cc single-cylinder engine, liquid-cooled, double overhead cam. It's got a 12.75 to 1 compression ratio. Pretty high compression, so you need to use premium fuel, of course. It holds just 1.2 liters of oil, meaning that more frequent oil changes are definitely something that you need to be aware of if you're going to get a performance-level machine like this. 6-speed transmission, wet clutch with a slip assist. Fuel tank is 8 liters or 2.1 gallons, which is not enough for most people. So this is going to get changed out for a 3-gallon or like a 11 or 12 liter tank as soon as I have the opportunity. In fact, I can't wait to get this video done because I already have stuff to start putting on this bike, tires, protection, different things like that. Get these factory mirrors off, a lot of upgrades. Let's talk about the suspension. So you've got the new WP Exact suspension on the dual sport bikes now, which is fantastic because the old stuff, whether it was the Explorer, the 4CS, or things like that, they were kind of lacking. So under this cover, if you pull this off, which I'll put a little B-roll of that here, you can get to the adjustments, the toolless adjustments for the rear shock damping. Preload, of course, you'd still need tools and probably take it off. Front, you have compression clickers at the top of each fork and rebound clickers at the bottom of each fork. You have 300 millimeters or about 12.5 inches of travel. Ground clearance, you have 13.5 inches or 340 millimeters, which is pretty awesome. You have a 37.5 inch seat height or about 950 millimeters, very tall. I showed that in episode 1. Now let's just take a little quick walk around the bike. So we've got the factory rear kind of lighting setup, which is going to get broken off here. If not today, then on my next ride, they just break. I don't know why it is. So that'll get replaced with something better. Factory pipe, which is this black. You can change this end cap out. This is one of the power restrictions, is this exhaust right here. TKC 80 tires, which are inappropriate for this kind of motorcycle, but that's what they have to put on here to pass the drive-by sound level test to get this thing certified to be street legal in US. Brake Tech braking components. Brake Tech is owned by Brembo, but a slightly different feel. I don't think most riders could honestly tell the difference. You can see the rear rim there. You can see our linkage suspension here. You got a rebound adjuster at the bottom, which you no longer need a screwdriver. You've got a manual, you can twist it with your hand. So I love the new toolless adjustments. Some nice blue frame protectors here. Brand new foot peg design, really nice big foot peg platform. I love this. It's also really like tight into the bike. This is a great new setup for 2024. The side of the engine, the exhaust here, you see the O2 sensor, radiators which need some protection, fuel tank. Overall, I love the color scheme of the Husky. It's got the sparkly blue frame. Oh, love that. I know I'm being totally ridiculous, but I do like it. I like the yellow, I like the blue, I like the white. It's just my kind of colors. It does come with a skid plate on the Husky, so that's nice, but it doesn't come with the linkage guard. You can add that separately, but I'm probably just going to get a whole new skid plate. Front fender, the really kind of wind deflectors, I like to call them, stock handguards, LED headlight. Finally, we have an LED headlight. For $13,000, you finally get an LED headlight in 2024. What a concept. Front tire, TKC 80, brake tech, dual piston front brakes. Maybe they're 4-piston. They're either 2 or 4-piston. I'll correct that here below. I don't know. One issue I have is this, whatever this stuff is, something to do with emissions, legality, I don't know. You can't really get your hand in here to get to the fast idle knob, which you sometimes need to start the bike if it's really cold. Shifter, side stand that always flips up out of the way. We're going to change that because they give you the different like bolt or whatever to change so it doesn't flip up. It's just a safety feature, I guess. It comes with 1448 gearing. In terms of power, you know, these bikes have around 36 horsepower at the wheel stock. The torque, I don't know the number. I'll try to put it here. And then if you change the ECU and change your exhaust end cap or your exhaust, you gain 20 horsepower. So you go from 37 horsepower to about 57 horsepower just by doing 2 simple things, which we're going to be doing in episode 3 or 4 whenever we get to that. So that's pretty crazy, the amount of power that's left untapped here with the platform. So what you have is a platform to build on, which you can turn into the ultimate dual sport bike if you want to. All right, well, enough blabbering. Let's get on this thing, go for a ride. Let's jump up on here and take this thing for a ride. Now, I have not ridden a bike yet. This is honestly my first ride, so you know, looking at the controls, again, you've got kind of typical stuff. They did change this switch here. You've got these nice forged triple clamps on the Husky. I don't think you get that on the KTM unless you get the 6 days model. The dash, but yeah, you can see 0.2 hours, odometer 1 mile. So I have not ridden it, so you know I'm being honest. So this is my first impressions. Now, these bikes, and my just being brutally honest, they're not very good stock. So that's just my opinion. This is a bike that you really need to modify quite a bit to make it work correctly. But that being said, they have gotten better over the years. But with some small changes, you can make this thing a whole lot better. So the dashboard has, like, you can configure here different screens you want to come up, but average speeds, trip computers, things like that. Of course, you've got speedometer. I wish it was a little bigger. The turn signal indicator is this little, I guess we have to, let's start the bike up. Why are we not starting? Oh, we got to turn the key on. So the key's here, which is kind of awkward. A lot of times on these bikes, I just leave that on because it doesn't power up anything. It just lets the bike start. So it's a little bit cold. So the bike does have a fast idle knob, but I can't really get to that because of all the stupid emission stuff is in the way. So that's kind of annoying. First thing I do notice is I feel a lot of vibration, just to be brutally honest. These bikes vibrate a lot. So a lot of the stuff we're going to be doing is to get the vibration out of the bars by changing the bar mounts to the Moto system, changing the foot pegs, changing the seat, just trying to dampen the vibes out of it because these big singles, they do vibrate quite a bit. But it all depends on what you're used to. If you're used to a dirt bike, then it's probably fine. If you're used to a Gold Wing or a twin-cylinder adventure bike, you're going to be like, what the heck, man? This thing vibrates a lot. So it's all relative to your experience. So we've got a hydraulic clutch. Pardon me for fumbling with the shifting. I'm just not used to this bike. I've never ridden it. The shifter's way too high. So that's something that I need to adjust. You know, when you first get a bike, you really should adjust all your controls. And you should set your rear suspension sag, which is something we're going to be doing in episode 3 with a new tool that I have. But it's not good, it's bad. I'm not doing the right thing. I should have adjusted all that before we went for a ride. But that's after my first ride. I can adjust my shift lever, my brake levers, my clutch, any handlebar positioning I feel like I want to do. So my first impression of being out here on the highway riding the bike at 55 miles an hour, let's go 60 miles an hour, or about 100 kilometers an hour. You know, the vibration I mostly feel through the seat, like through my butt, and also through the foot pegs. Like my feet are vibrating like crazy. It will get better as the bike breaks in, and of course we're going to do modifications to reduce that. The bike feels, you know, relatively powerful, but it doesn't feel, honestly, it doesn't feel crazy powerful. You have to do the modifications if you really want to get the power out of it. So the motorcycle comes with 1448 gearing, which is kind of a good gearing for like dual sport riding, where you do have to jump on the road. Like you can cruise here at 65 and it's very comfortable. It's not revved out at all. So that's good, but we might want to get a little bit lower gearing for the trail. We might go down to like 50 in the back sprocket, like 1450 maybe. We'll play with that. My hope is to own this bike for a long time. In terms of the power, again, if it feels really similar to me to the previous generation in terms of the power and torque. And the vibration also feels similar. In fact, the whole bike kind of reminds me of when I got my 2020 KTM 500. The whole bike just kind of feels the same as that, to be honest. Alright, first things first, let's get fuel with the bike. So to open the fuel cap, you press this kind of button down and you twist this to the left. And then you can fuel up. The stock fuel tank's really a limitation at 2 gallons. Plus they moved the fuel pickup up here, so you can't use the whole capacity, which makes things even worse. But there's fixes for all of that stuff. And I'm going to be working closely with Moto, if you know Mike at Moto, a lot on this bike build. Alright, now is a good time to cover the gear I'm wearing today. I'm wearing the CD Crossfire SRS boots, Moscow Moto Woodsman pants, Revit knee guards, Moscow Moto Basilisk jacket. Under that I've got the Revit Proteus armored protector, workhorse jersey from Moscow Moto, and MSR base layers. I've got the Moscow Moto Wildcat 12 backpack, the Rai XT4 helmet, and I'm using DJI Osmo for action cameras, which is a huge upgrade from the GoPros I've been using. So there's 75 miles an hour. You know, the power is pretty good actually. It has enough power. It's just that when you know you can unlock 20 more horsepower, it's kind of crazy, you know, when you think about that. But even if you didn't do that, you'd still have a bike that had really good power. Also, these 2024s, they're supposed to have better low-end fueling and not stall and flame out as much, so I guess we'll find out here once we get on the trail here in a minute. But actually, I'm pleasantly surprised. Even at 70 miles an hour, it doesn't feel too vibey. It's better than I expected. It doesn't feel too bad at all. The brakes feel, you know, perfect. They feel like great feel, great power through the brakes. One thing I will tell you is that this seat is horrible. It is not designed for sitting down, and it feels like there's a razor blade up my bum pretty much after 10 miles of riding. So budget for an aftermarket seat for sure. All right, I'm at my actually very beautiful, I have to say, especially today, off-road little test course. I think it's a suitable kind of trail for this bike. On the stock configuration kind of indicates the terrain most people will kind of ride on one of these, although this will be the easier end of it. I think, you know, this is an enduro bike after all. You can do anything kind of hard enduro that you really want to do. Couple things I noticed riding on the street over here. I've never ridden one of these with such a street kind of tire. I noticed the handling is actually really nice. Like, I can see why some people set these up as like supermoto bikes. It'd be a heck of a lot of fun, because think about it, so lightweight, so much power. Man, with some street tires you could really go crazy. So for dirt, there's not much to do other than jump on and ride it. Of course, I'll need to make quite a few adjustments, later on once I've spent a little bit more time with the bike. And again, the bike is never an excuse, and I'm admittedly not a very good enduro rider. It's one thing I'm trying to get better at. So anyway, let's give this thing a go. Now, I do expect to feel a big difference in terms of the suspension, because that's something that's been noted on these brand new models. They're supposed to be a lot better. Some people have said they're actually too stiff, which a lot of that could probably be adjustments, or later we could do springs or valves or whatever we want to do. One thing, I don't really like this new switch. To kind of turn it off, you're going to have to kind of hard to push it in. I don't know, minor, but worth mentioning. I'm going to stand up and try to be a good enduro rider here, which is going to make the camera angle kind of weird for my bar mounted cam. But my absolute first impression on the bike is it feels like I'm riding a mountain bike. That's how small and light it feels. And because it's so light and has such a punchy motor, lofting the front wheel, oh man, these bikes are so much fun. It's a bit hard to see, and we have quite a bit of rocks here. It's such a revelation riding this after riding my KLX. I'd started to forget what a good dual sport bike feels like. I don't mean to say anything bad about the KLX, it's just this is 50 pounds less, amazing suspension, and a ton more power. The engine feels really good. Let's try the low speed, so second gear, kind of tractoring along. Yeah, it doesn't seem like it wants to stall or flame out like the old bike did, so that's a good thing. The suspension, yeah, the suspension does have a much different feel than the suspension on the previous generation. It's much firmer, much tighter. I think it's a good thing though. And you can play with your adjustments a lot. The bike is sprung, these bikes are sprung for a rider around 180 pounds, somewhere in there. Nice little rock, boop boop. There's so much ground clearance on this that you can hit things. Woo, that's fun. Yeah, boy. Wow, I forgot how good these things are. Anyway, I forget what I was saying a second ago. Here's lugging it in third gear. I mean, I'm sure you can stall it, but it doesn't seem to do the flame out that the old one did. The foot pegs feel really good. This is the best factory foot peg I've ever felt on an off-road bike. Really like my foot positioning, and the size of the foot peg is excellent. You can adjust the bars on these, handlebars forward and back, stuff like that. But man, I'm super impressed for just taking a bone stock bike on a trail. It feels super good already. This is awesome. Tell you what, I'm going to turn the cameras off for a little bit, try to get some more ride impressions, and I'll come back in a minute. It's getting late in the day, and I've come up this trail a bit further. I'm by myself, and I forgot my little, satellite beacon thing, so I don't want to get too far into the wilderness by myself. But my first impression so far is this is hands down the best dual sport bike I've ever tested or ridden or reviewed. Even in stock form, without even making a lot of adjustments to fit me, man, this thing, the power delivery, the suspension performance, suspension feel, the stability of it, tracking through rocks. It's got very rocky coming up here, quite steep. It feels sublime. And there's a reason that these bikes and the KTMs, and of course the Betas too, are pretty much ridden by every enthusiast dual sport rider in the world. It's because they're the best. And this is the newest version, the best iteration of it. I really look forward to delving into this more. This bike feels amazing so far. I am totally happy with my purchase. I feel it is worth the money. And I'm just jazzed. I mean, the new suspension is legit. Like, I can tell you, I have a lot of experience on the previous 3 generations of these things, including the generation before this with the Explorer, and this is night and day better. Night and day better. We could do a little bit of tuning with our clickers. I need to set the sag once I get my little bag on the back with my tools and stuff like that. Get our sag dialed in, ride it, change one thing at a time, come back, you know. But even the way it is, it feels awesome. The best suspension I think that's ever come on one of these things. So it's good that now that you're spending all this money, you're actually getting a suspension that you may not, depending on your weight, you may not actually need to do much to it, which is great because that'll save you some money and some time. Of course, I need to test more to kind of figure that out. Otherwise, you know, I love these new foot pegs. I talked about that. The controls feel good. I need to adjust my controls and things like that. I mean, the seat's horrible, but you're standing up in off-road terrain, so unless you're sitting down, you don't notice the seat. Of course, tires, that's obviously we need to change those, but these tires aren't even that bad, honestly. I think I might put these on the KLX, so get some sort of use out of them, you know. But man, I am super, super jazzed about this bike right now. It feels good on the road and it feels good off-road, and it definitely feels like it's worth the price. Hydraulic clutch, I love that. The suspension doesn't have that overly soft, floaty feel that the previous bikes kind of did, at least when they were, you know, when they were stock. Really doesn't have that. Some people have said maybe this is too firm. I don't know that I agree with that. I think this is right for the kind of missions that this bike is designed for. Oh, I know what I wanted to talk about. Why did I sell the 350 EXE? So I had the 2022 350 EXE last year, and I said, I had some videos of that, and I said how amazing it was, and it was all set up, had the recluse clutch, everything, suspension. I regret selling it. It was a mistake, to be brutally honest. I shouldn't have sold it. It was one of those moments where I was like, okay, I need to use that money to buy other bikes for testing and run the YouTube channel and do the reviews and stuff like that. And I got a great price for it, actually, great price. I think I actually sold it for more than I paid for it the year before. But they're just in demand, and that one was so well set up. But the 350 was perfect. I loved the motor. I loved the power delivery. That bike was set up just dialed, and now I have to start from zero. But you know what? It's okay. It's going to be cool because I've got new suspension to play with. I've got a new bike to play with. I've got the 500 version this time, which is better for kind of the desert riding and stuff. And all the improvements that they've done. I mean, it is my job to review the newest stuff, and that's why I wanted to have this. But it is a bit of a bummer having to start from zero with the mods. You know, it's like, okay, I gotta get the seat. That's $300 or $400. I gotta get the recluse clutch. Is $1,200. You know, and I can't get all this stuff sponsored. I know some of you guys think that I get everything for free. I do get some stuff, but not everything. So I know it's a first world problem, and it's a good problem to have. But anyway, I'm stoked about this. I also regret, I shouldn't have sold the 350, but in a way, I suppose it was the right decision, just because it's just like I want to try the latest and greatest things that come out. That's what I like to do, and it's also kind of part of my job. But there was zero wrong with the 350. That was a beautifully set up bike, and I miss it. But anyway, now we're going to get to set this up. So now some people might wonder, can you notice the 50-pound weight difference between this and like a KLX or a DRZ or a CRF or one of those? Oh, absolutely. Like, right away. I don't know what's... Oh, shoot. I'm glad I heard that. My frickin' license plate has already come off. Good Lord, people. Why can't they just spend a few more dollars and bloody... for God's sake. Yeah, I heard something. So because this shakes around back here and you're riding in off-road terrain, it just breaks off. I mean, come on, guys. After all these years, you still can't give us something that works. But, you know, it's like the dual sport accessories or parts in it are just an afterthought, which that's kind of KTM's attitude. But I was going to replace that anyway with a tail tidy. But now I got to unhook these wires and stick this in my backpack. Thankfully, I'm wearing a backpack, and ride this home with no license plate, so that's going to be fun. Probably get pulled over. Hopefully I'm wearing my Wildcat backpack because stupidly I didn't bring tools and zip ties and different things with me. I could have fixed it with some zip ties. What happened is the two bolts that like hold this thing on, I guess just vibrated out within the first like 5 miles, and so the assembly was just dinging. I had to pull this wire off and kind of break it. But what I did was I used the straps on my Wildcat to sort of affix this here, so when I ride home I won't get pulled over for not having a license plate, because it's kind of a big deal. So anyway, that worked out. I just really want to save the license plate, that's all, because that's all I'm going to end up using. I just didn't want to lose that, and I can't have it, you know, flopping around getting caught in the tire as I try to get out of here. So there's my fix for that. There you go, Moto Wildcat backpack to the rescue. Alright, well, we're about to lose our daylight. It's getting cold, and I haven't eaten since this morning. So we are going to try to wrap this video up here. But I hope you enjoyed going on the first ride with me. It was a little bit eventful with this happening. So, you know, if you think I'm lying about the need to do some upgrades, there's proof right there. I couldn't even ride the bike 50 miles without that breaking off. The mirrors are flopping all about like this as I go down the road. So there's some obvious easy quick wins we're going to do in episode 3. Episode 3 will be some early upgrades, changes, also the first oil change. So the manual says change oil at 40 miles or about an hour of use, which we have right about now. So we'll go ahead and we'll do that oil change. I'll show that on video real quick. We'll get some of the first mods put on. Fingers crossed we'll have a seat concept seat by then, because this thing is killing me on the highway runs anyway. But overall the bike feels phenomenal. Definitely the best dual sport bike I've ever ridden or tested. And it should be, because it's the most expensive dual sport bike for sale right now in the USA. So anyway, stay tuned for the rest of the series. It's going to be really cool to do a series with this bike. I hope you guys enjoy it. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, let me know down below. Please support Big Rock Moto. There's ways to do that down below as well. Other than that, thanks for watching. Ride safe, and I'll see you out there.